Hello, hello, friends. We are here live on Thursday, April 13th, 2023. We are here for the daily transmission. Say hello when you arrive. And if I haven't mentioned it already, please subscribe, follow wherever it is that you enjoy consuming this. And, I know some people, they're like, oh, I started watching it on Instagram, but then I had something else to do. And, Instagram doesn't follow you. Guess what? You can get the preview later, or you can get the replay later. Hey, good morning. Over on Spotify, you can get it on Apple Podcasts in audio form. So there's all kinds of ways that you can subscribe if Instagram or Twitch is not your flavor. So I love Thursdays. Thursday is the day of Jupiter. We still have this lingering Jupiter cazimi. It is fading now, so it's moving away. But this is just really the energy of possibility. And I heard something in my yoga class this morning. My yoga teacher said, and I'm paraphrasing now because this was literally hours ago, but she said, we are already perfect and we still have work to do. And I just immediately, it's 6 a.m. We haven't even begun our flow. And I'm just welling up with tears and just so full of love and gratitude. And that is, to me, what it is that we should have gotten out of this week, especially. Now, I know it's not always easy to be geared toward the energy of possibility or opportunity when it feels like we are in constriction, right? When it feels like we are in a moment like there are things outside of our control that are keeping us from having what it is that we think we want, or what it is we are going after, or where it is that we were positioned toward. I want you to remember that when we have tunnel vision and we're so focused on one specific outcome that we think it is that we want, we are giving our brain the processing. I want you to really think about your brain like a computer, okay? So you're telling your brain, when I'm focused on this one process, this one program, let's put everything else into sleep mode. Let's put everything else into hibernate mode. This is the only tab I need right now. Close out the rest. And so what that does is it closes you off from possibility. So even though there are possibilities around you all the time, you're just not even seeing them or perceiving them to begin with because you're so focused on this thing you thought you wanted. So with that said, I know it can be scary or challenging to give yourself permission to release control when you have been so singularly focused on something. But that's what Jupiter is supposed to be here for. It's supposed to be here to excite you and get you back into that energy of possibility and just excitement. That to me is pure Jupiter. It's about the doing something new and learning a new thing and expanding and growing and opportunities. And now we have some other things that are coming up right now that I think we should be paying attention to, because again, nothing exists in a vacuum. It's not like we're only having this Jupiter cazimi week that we've been, experiencing. We've got all kinds of other stuff going on, right? And so I wrote a post on Substack about this yesterday. We've got Venus in Gemini now. Because this happened just a few days ago, Venus is still toward the beginning of Gemini. Now, Venus is a quick mover when she doesn't have any retrogrades. So it's only 3.5 weeks. It's just under a month that Venus will be in Gemini. So it's a real zippy kind of transit. But because it's still at the beginning of Gemini, we've got a square right now with Venus and Saturn. Now, squares, if you're looking at your birth chart, if you're looking at, any of these astrological charts, these are relationships. When I say the Sun and Jupiter are in conjunction, that means that they're in line with one another, right? That they're in the same place in the astrological system. That doesn't mean they're literally touching, okay, because they have not moved from where they are, it's just that they're in orbit, okay? So in the same place in the system. So when we have a square, there are, astrologers have some of those relationships between planets are inherently like lucky or positive or, good, I guess you could say. And then we have aspects that are considered not so great. I like to consider them challenges. Challenges are just opportunities for us to grow. When I think of a square, what I think of is, am I like so old? I think of the movie The Labyrinth. Okay. Do we all, right? David Bowie in tights. Right? I'm the babe with the power. Okay, that's enough. So there's this scene in the movie where she's in the labyrinth and she comes up to what is like, she's like running back and forth. And she's just like, no, there's nowhere to go. Like I'm stuck. Like I've come up against a wall. And then this little like worm kind of comes out of the wall and is like, well, you're not looking at it the right way, essentially. That if she like just looked at it a different way, that she could see that there's actually like a kind of hallway that she can step into. But because of the way that she's perceiving the wall, it just looks like a flat wall in front of her. That is my perception of squares, that you think you've come up against this flat wall and it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? You're either going to sit down and pout about it, or you're going to accept the challenge and allow yourself to see something in a different way. Accepting a challenge. Now, listen, she didn't try and climb up the wall. She didn't try to scale the wall. She looked at it differently. And that's what I want you to remember, that if it feels like it's hard, if it feels like it's like, oh my gosh, we are really like just killing ourselves here trying to make this happen. Okay, just stop and take a look at yourself and ask, how can I see this differently? How can I make this easier? Where am I making this way too complicated? Who can I ask? Who can I call? What resources? What can I ask ChatGPT? I don't care, but there is a way to make something easier. So Venus in Gemini, as it is it's not a romantic time necessarily. I call it like curious and flirtatious, because Venus in Gemini, it wants to it's like, I want a little bit of this and I want a little bit of that. And it's kind of indecisive, just the same way that, we mentioned a few months ago, when Mars was, God, and its never ending transit of Gemini, that is a very indecisive place to be. So with Mars being our action taker, you can see how that might translate with Venus now being in Gemini, because this is about what you're attracted to, what you want to see more of, what your values are, what you want to be pursuing right now. So more in a pull sort of way than a masculine push sort of way, like Mars was. So this is frustrating maybe in a different way, but it can also be incredibly exciting, right? Because it's like you're trying out different books or different tools, or, it really depends on where Gemini lands in your chart. For me in Gemini, I'm Gemini rising, so this is my first house. So a lot of this is going to be about the way that I'm seen. It's so funny. Usually when I've got this Venus in Gemini transit, I do have like a rebrand phase, and no shit, I just I'm redoing my website and stuff right now. It's just whatever. I don't even think about it. And that's also what I hope you can take away from these. I'm here to offer you like a celestial weather report, but that doesn't mean it's gonna be a torrential rain if I say there's a chance of rain, okay? I don't want you making decisions based on the things that you hear here. I want you to feel like affirmation and confirmation, like, oh my gosh, what I was thinking and feeling is exactly right on. And that helps you to feel more like trusting in your own self and in your own intuition. That's what I'm here for. Okay. So when I go about planning things and doing things, it's not like oh my gosh, well, let me check the transits. Let me make sure that I'm not gonna, I don't know, whatever. So when Venus comes through Gemini, this is usually a time when I'm taking another look at like how I'm presenting myself and how I want to be seen in the world and what my first impression looks like and things like that. And so with Venus now being in a square with Saturn and Pisces, you're going to want to look at where you may be making it too hard. And like I have historically made so much of my own branding too hard. And it's not because I don't know, it's not because it's too hard, because it's not too hard for me. Like I do generally enjoy, a rebrand or, making my website or things like that. But I know that I was making it like so much more important than it needed to be, because I know that it's much more about the energy that I bring, that it's the consistency in developing this relationship with you. These are things that are so much more important. And my first impression is only a moment, where this is something that's lasting and where we're building trust. And so with this being a square, I think that this is a time for me to be like, oh, where has maybe my like brand historically not been in line with, and I mean, I don't even know. It's just, these are things that I might be considering, because Venus is transiting my first house and it's in that square with Saturn in my 10th house. The 10th house, of course, being the house of career and reputation and public image versus that first impression image. And actually, this is something that I have been reflecting on relatively recently, because I was talking to one of my friends in my yoga teacher training, and she was sharing with me how sometimes she pops in for the daily transmission, hey Jess, what's going on? And so she was telling me how cool it is that like I am the same there as I am here. And that's something that is like, I really receive that, because it took a long time for those two things to match up. I was so much more brave here, and not in a performative way, but just because like you're through a screen, like you can't actually hurt me. Like I've gotten my fair share of like trolls and haters and stuff, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel the same to me as it does in real life. I mean, come on, like real life rejection, real life judgment, or your perception of judgment and rejection. Ugh, that sucks, right? And so for me, it was very much like a safety thing, that I would allow myself to come out and come alive here, and not so much in person in public. I was much more quiet, much more subdued, much more of like a wallflower type. And you might be hearing me right now and you're like, what are you talking about, Fani? Like, I can't even imagine you being a wallflower type, but it's true. And so this is definitely a day. Hey, Ebony, good morning. This is definitely a moment for me to be observing myself and asking, like, how can I bring even more of the person that I am here into the world? Like, how can I, reduce my fears, or, embrace the challenge of synthesizing or coming to terms with, maybe it's okay that like I turn on or turn up a little bit more for the internet than I do in person. Or I don't know, maybe I should be turning up more in person. All things for me to contemplate personally. I would encourage you to look at wherever Gemini and Pisces are in your chart in order for you to contemplate a little deeper on that square. And remember, squares are not necessarily like bad. It doesn't have to, challenge doesn't have to mean that you are facing like a mountain or something that is just like, hard work. In fact, if it is hard, please ask yourself, how can I make this easier? Okay. Next week, we do have Mercury going retrograde, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I will be writing a post on it on my Substack. I'll, of course, be sharing about it in the transmission, but I just want you to think about that for a moment. This is just what I kind of want to leave you with. If we have just come out of a new window of opportunity, new windows of opportunity opening for us, okay? Venus entering Gemini. So we're getting curious, we're getting flirtatious, we want to try new things, we're dabbling here and we're dabbling there, and we're doing a little bit of this and we're doing a little bit of that, okay? And then we also have Mercury going retrograde. in Taurus, which is very much the sign of the material world, physical possessions, money. Be clear with your intentions when you're interacting with people, when you're being with yourself. How many times a day do you lie to yourself? I used to do it a lot. I still catch myself. I'm like, oh, who are you trying to fool? It's just us here. It's just me. No. Okay. Give yourself the opportunity to learn through these experiences without it having to be like debilitating, without it having to be devastating, and especially to your interpersonal relationships, because this could very much be a time where you are like, you're into your thing, or you're so singularly focused in what makes you feel good or what brings you pleasure and safety and security and comfort, that you may be a little less like empathetic or just intentionally considerate of others. Okay. And vice versa. Everybody, right? We're all going to be a little bit in our own heads, a little bit in our own, like, I want to do this. So do it. But if somebody else wants to do something too, like, we have to honor that for them just as much as we need to honor ourselves too. And I had this conversation with my daughter this morning. Clarity and boundaries does not have to mean harshness. You don't have to be rude or a dick or abrasive to be heard and to get your point across. And that's going to be the big one. So things for you to contemplate. I hope that you have a beautiful Thursday. We will be back tomorrow for our Friday edition of the Daily Transmission. Again, make sure that you are subscribed wherever you are. And if you want to be a pal, share this with a friend. More people for the Daily Transmission, more people getting the transmission, like more people getting the recognition that this is all happening. And maybe there will be a little less tension, a little less fighting, a little less, maybe we'll all be a little more intentionally kind, or a little bit more intentionally just like watching our mouth and our words a little bit better. Wouldn't that be wonderful? That's my hope, y'all. That's my hope. Just like, can we just all like be nicer? Maybe. I don't know. That's it. So love y'all. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you. And have a great Thursday. Bye, friends.